Okay, you guys, let's go ahead and get started. So, what I want you guys to do today is I, I want to make sure that you're building up those white areas. And remember, as we go through this painting, um, first thing you want to do is apply more of a thin coat to the white areas you already have white. So you're building those up. But then as you get lighter and lighter in your picture, then you start building up a little bit of color in those too. So for example, on mine here, I've been building up the light areas, and I still have some areas I haven't put any white on. And today I want to get some white in every place. And I want to build up these areas and add some white here. And I want to try to get at least all the face having some, at least thin layer of white on it. So this is I don't know if this is our 4th day or 5th day on white. Yeah, so it's been a little while. I'll count them up to see how many we've done. But we'll probably spend, like on mine, I will probably spend another day or two after today on white. Because I usually get, I don't know, 7 days maybe. 6, 7 days, somewhere in there. Now I noticed that some of the people in here, some of the students in class, probably will need a little bit more time with the white, because they did exactly what I told them to do and go really slowly and add very, very thin layers. And that really makes a big difference when you do that. Focus on thin layers, take it really slow, especially if this is your first time painting a portrait. Just take it really slow. And I know you don't see much change in your painting, but if you were to take a picture every day that you work on it and you look back through the pictures, you would see that you are making a difference each day that you work on this. So it slowly gets better, it slowly gets more opaque, and you start to see more of what you're trying to do here, slowly but surely. And it just takes some time. So just keep working at it, it will get there, and eventually we'll have a painting. So what I want to do now is I've got my paint and my medium. Notice I've got a tiny bit of paint, and the medium I got a little bit more of because I'm going to use that. And don't mix up all of your paint. Only mix up a portion of your paint. That way, if you need more paint, you need to be more opaque, you could pull a little bit of white out of there. And then if you needed a little thinner, you could pull some of the medium out. So only mix up a little portion of your medium and your paint. Generally, I would say you would use a palette knife to mix this up, but because it's just a little bit of white, I use my brush. So in the future, we'll start trying to use the palette knife more, but for this here, I just use my brush because it's mostly medium, and I'm not too worried about it. So I will go ahead and start painting over my white areas again, and I'm going to start painting in some of the areas I haven't painted in. And I'm going to try to get it really smoothed out this time because it's a little bit rough. And I haven't minded putting the rough texture on there because of my skin type. You know, I keep on saying I'm old, and that's what happens when you have old skin. You know, you have, it's more blotchy. And so it's easier to have it a little bit more rough, the brush strokes to be a little bit more rough because of just the way it is. So I'm kind of putting paint on all areas of this, trying to build this color up. Don't forget, if it's always good to stand back from your painting some. Once you started working on it, just kind of get back a little bit and look at it. And it always helps when you just stand back, and you get a fresh perspective. You're just kind of, when you're painting it, you're just so close, sometimes you just can't see everything. So once in a while, get up, stand up, walk, 5, 8, 10 feet away, and then come back, and I think that will really help you. So I leave this on the easel all the time, especially since we don't have any students in the classroom hardly because of COVID. And that way I can, as I walk by, I take a glance at it. I notice often I need to work on this area or work on that area. So it really does help having it sit out and you can look at it a little bit and evaluate it. Like I said, sometimes you think I'm not putting enough paint on there, but you are. So don't worry about it. I mean, keep it light, go slow. It just takes time to paint this. And it takes a lot of layers. If there's an area that you think you got too much white on and it's dry, you can't get it off, you can't clean it up, don't worry about that. Once we go to our darker color, sometimes there will be some areas I have to fix because there's a couple spots like on the ear that I know I've got to fix, but I can't do it with the white color. I have to do it with some dark. And so that's completely normal to have to go back and fix some things maybe that you didn't quite get right, and that's normal and okay, because I'm looking at some of my areas and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have put that white there. The shape is not right and I need to change that shape, and I can do that later, even though I'd really like to do it now. But sometimes you just have to wait until you get your darker color, you start your darker color, and I'll talk about that more later. That what we're going to do is right now we're focusing on all the light areas. Eventually, we're going to come back and focus on the dark areas. And we're going to, after we get done with the light areas, then we hit the dark areas. And we do it just the opposite, where we'll go with a dark color and we will start painting in all the dark areas, and we'll slowly do it over several coats, over layer upon layer, and we use usually a cool color, so it can be a blue, a purple, or a green. And that's always the point when I start putting that color on that I'm just like, uh-oh, I made a mistake, I messed this up. And it always turns out okay, but it's like it gets worse before it gets better. And it's a little bit scary because, you put all this time in and you start to think, okay, I'm doing a pretty good job. It's looking like what I'd hoped it would look like, or pretty good anyway. And then you start putting this primary color on, you're like, oh, doesn't look so good. I may have made a mistake by putting that on there. And then they're questioning me like, you told me to do this and look at it. And I felt the same way when I first started doing this technique. And I was really concerned, like, this does not look good. You know, I think I've messed it up. And, you know, when you get done with it, you're like, oh, okay, now I can see, you know, I can see it. But it goes through a stage where you're really not sure about it. Especially when you're putting a whole bunch of dark blues on this and you're like, okay, I just don't see it. I don't think it's working right. I obviously did something wrong. And that's normal to think that, because it's exactly what I thought. And, you know, I was actually, when we changed Art 2 to go to more painting, I didn't have any experience with oil painting. The stuff I did at, you know, the university was just really a very basic course, and honestly, we were not taught. You know, pretty much the teacher said, okay, paint something, and they didn't really teach you how to do it. They didn't talk about how to, you know, put the image on there, and they didn't talk about how to get started. They didn't talk about what you should do or guide you. They pretty much said, okay, just go, and you were on your own. And honestly, I don't think it was that great of an experience. You know, because there were really no critiques where they, you know, sat down with you and talked to you about what's going on. And it, you know, part of it, I think, was because it's a grad student teaching you, you know, and they don't have a lot of experience teaching. And some of the professors at university don't have a lot of experience teaching either. You'll find that a lot of high school teachers are much better teachers than college teachers, but that's beside the point. So I really didn't know how to paint with oil paints. And I had to have a student teach me. A student here at the high school, they were doing it in another class, and the students helped me, told me what to do, and then eventually I got to where I'm like, okay, I got it. I think I could do this. Now, granted, these were pretty talented students, you know, that I had that helped me out with this. Sometimes when things wouldn't go right, I'd be like, okay, are you sure? Because, you know, I know just because you can do something doesn't mean you can teach it. They always say teachers that can't do, or people that can't do it, they call teachers. I don't think that's true. I'm sure if you've been in school, you might agree with me. And that's one reason why I think it's important for the teachers actually to do the assignments. And I think it helps understand the problems of the students. So don't worry, I'm not And when we start putting color on here, I'm not doing it just because I think it's right. I've actually done it and gone through it, so I know exactly how it feels to not be sure that you're doing the right thing. Because I've been there. Okay, I found a big error on mine. My hat, the shape of my hat is wrong. I do not know how I did that. I'm gonna see if I can kind of fix it for now, but I may have to go back later and fix it with the dark color. I do not know how I did that. The shape of my hat, I'm just like, oh, that's not right. So I'm gonna see if I can kind of define the edges a little bit more. I'm gonna put a little bit more paint on than I usually would. See if I can get this figured out. And like I said, I may have to fix it with the dark paint. And sometimes I've done that where I'll go and get some dark paint and put it on there so that I can fix some errors. And I might be able to go back with some orange and try to pull the error out real quick before it gets too far along. Yeah, I'm not sure how I did this, but it is off. I can see that now. Yep. That's closer to what it should be. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes you just make a mistake and you just try to paint it out. Go back and paint it out. So I may grab just a little bit of orange real quick and I'll try to fill this in and cover that line. Maybe that will fix it. Okay, I'm just gonna make up a little bit of orange. And it doesn't have to be real orange. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. But I'm gonna try to mix up a little bit. So I got my palette here, got a little bit of yellow, and I need some just like red. I don't have really any red, but not any standard red anyway. So this orange may look a little different than what I have there. That's okay. I don't think it'll be too distracting for me. I think I can do it. I'm just gonna try to go over some of these line areas that I messed up. Look right there, that is wrong. So I think if I paint that out, I can fix that for now. So this is what I'm talking about. Sometimes you have to kind of come back with another color to fix an area. And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about that. So I'm just kind of going back and putting some color on that. See if I can fix that up and clean it up so it doesn't confuse me. And I come back up here. Okay, and that'll take a little bit of time to dry. Give it a couple days, it'll be fine. And I could stay away from it, that area, if I need to. Now, generally, I would say don't do this, but occasionally, if you've got something that really needs to be cleaned up, it might cause a problem. If you don't, it's okay to do that. I might as well fix in here since I got this paint. Okay, I think that did it. Got a lot more cleanup today now, though. Okay, well, that'll be it for today. I'll let that dry and come back and see if I can fix it up a little bit more, and then we'll worry about that next time.